I just want to go over a few things. I'm not sure exactly how long I'm going to be on this live, but it was very important I did do this live because we are starting to break down out of these rising wedges. And I talked about it in my morning update, but let's face it, sometimes it hits home better when I'm live in front of you. And I see in my Telegram there was a few people after I mentioned the breakdown, the 10 to 15% that looks like it's happening in real time. Just their perspective thinking it's going to hold. Well, I understand perspective as well as my own even, and I want it to hold as well. But taking out my personal emotion of my own expectation or what I think I want to happen, looking at the chart is pretty unbiased. And unfortunately here, we have to face the facts, whether it's a slap in the face, a kick in the nuts, just a point in the right direction. This doesn't mean we're overall bearish. It just means for this moment in time, we formed a rising wedge, which is bearish if it breaks down. And not all the time it does. I'd say a good 85 to 90% of the time, you're going to break down out of rising wedges. And that's just, unfortunately, the rising wedge is like the equivalent of what we love seeing in a descending triangle, or a descending wedge, I should say, not a triangle. But what we want to see in a descending wedge to show a breakout should be coming, as that descending wedge tightens. It's the similar action in a rising wedge. As we get to the end of a rising wedge, generally what ends up happening is you come back from where the bottom was at, and you try to kind of reset there and see if you do have that support. You fill any gap areas, you make sure that there's a support structure, and then it quickly will bounce back if it's meant to. And in this case, what I see with XLM is if this rising wedge is playing out like it should, the rising wedge would bring us down, I would say probably, I almost say it would almost bring us back down to the bottom of this pattern. Ooh. Because you don't have to go all the way down there, but I'm trying to see if it would make its way back down all the way. Because, let's face it, if it comes somewhere like this, maybe it doesn't have to come all the way down, because it already, let me see something on the chart. But that's 20 cents. Like, let's face it, that's down to 20 cents. I know DGB, yeah, see, that's the problem. This isn't lined up. I just threw that out. That's not even a... I was going to say, that doesn't seem right. It should be lining up towards the drop point. Oh, there you go. Let me get rid of this, too. Sometimes I just draw perspectives, but see how that was like a descending wedge broke up. Now that rising wedge sucks. That sucks. And yesterday I was very happy, right? Friday, I was very happy. Saturday morning, I was very happy because I knew that, like, for XRP, 25 cents. Or $2.25, and it was the equivalent kind of move for the rest of the market. It wasn't one of those where it was running by itself. But now, equally as excited as I was there, this isn't that. I wasn't that off when I drew it myself. But this is where we've got the problem. This is where this chart should be cutting in. And we'll play it because that was a bottom. And then we know that was a bottom, so that's how it should be, something like that. I mean, that's pretty damn close. Ugh, that's brutal, though. This setup right now is brutal. And because it's not the Sunday candle yet, this is why it sets it up very interesting. Because this is starting to set us up for another Sunday bearish candle. Like right now, it doesn't even matter what it is. This is the Saturday candle still. Just because it's Sunday... this isn't what we define as a Sunday move right now. If you're new to crypto, you might not understand that. But this isn't the Sunday move yet. This is the Saturday move built in. The candle ends at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for another 3 hours and 17 minutes, to me, this is still Saturday's candle. Because it opened at 8 p.m. And then for me, Sunday night at 8 p.m. is the real candle leading into the real day. Like, I know that's not really the way it goes. But to me, it is, because when does the weekly candle close? Tonight at 8 p.m., which means that this is still a Saturday candle. So, some people don't look at it that way, but I'm just looking at it from like a standpoint of the data for me. I'm not like Jerome Powell and I got to wait for the next month for the data. I can see it in real time. I don't need to act like there's something more that's going to add to the dilemma or to what I'm going to see later. We can see everything we're going to see later. Now it's just we have to foresee it right now. And right now we're foreseeing a rising wedge. And the rising wedge we are seeing breaking down. And if said rising wedge, if we just take our emotion out of it, plays the way it's supposed to, said rising wedge would drop on XLM another 15.8%. So I'm not being a bearish loser right now. I'm just not, you know, I'm not going to avoid the, I'm not going to be dismissive of what's happening right in front of my very eyes. So this is where you either love me or hate me, because I'm not always going to be bullish. Yesterday, a lot of people liked me. I had like 100 and I had one of the bigger days of following on my channel yesterday, and quite some time. We had yesterday, it was a remarkable day yesterday. And I know why so many people followed. Now I hope so many people don't unfollow because of the truth today, because some people see me for the first 190 people followed yesterday. And guess what we talked about yesterday? The surge. I talked about the surge coming to XRP. And a lot of people must have liked it. You know, a lot of people liked it. A lot of views on a lot of things. And yesterday I talked about the bullish setup. I was $2.25. And then I talked about a pump incoming. And that was some USDT was minted in the treasury. So that could have been the caveat there. But now we've got the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. We've got a little bit of a gap there as well, the CME. So we're going to have to fill that. This is what sucks. We're going to have to fill that going back into Monday morning. Look where we closed on Friday. Look where we're going to... So it's always going to try to fill that separation. And that's why the weekend's fun sometimes. I made good money on my IOTA trade. Was a better than 60% trade. I talked about it in real time, even when I closed it this morning before the drop. And that was the first leverage trade I've opened in quite some time. And it was a simple $500 trade, and I had 10x trade. That was it. And it did, 15. I don't remember what it was. But it was a several day trade. Nothing special. But now I talk warning in all my videos so far. And it's not that I want to be warning. I want this, that, then the other. It's just when I can see it on the chart, I'm not going to not talk about it. And like I seen it on XL, I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. And then I looked at DGB, I'm like, oh yeah, there it is right there too. There it is. You know, we got a bigger pattern, but we got a rising wedge that I think is pretty obvious that formed. And now the rising wedge will probably bring us back to the uptrend. And this is fine. It's nothing to jump off the bridge about. But it's definitely, oh man, you know, we're going to come back down here. And DGB is like 10%, but it's already started its movement a little bit. You know, it had come down out of this rising wedge. Not crazy. No, not that crazy. Only a couple percent. Ooh, see, when you look at it in totality, even for DGB, it's a 10 to 15% drop. Ugh. What if I measure it like this, like I did with XLM? How bad could it possibly be? Ooh, that's kind of wide. That is kind of wide. Wow. Ah. See, now that would be a problem. That would be a problem. This would be a problem with the rising wedges if they come down that far. Son of a bitch. Because then if it comes down, and let's say it breaks down here and it gets rejected, then we're going to, it's not huge, but then you got to come back down to the lower part of the pattern. And if it comes back down to the lower part, that just adds another, 11% to it. But that looks like an overreach. So I think it would be fair to say maybe it does have an overreach of 13, 14%, but then it likely just drags back up on an extended wick. But the bottom line is the market's trying to tell us something. Hopefully, it doesn't tell us that. And it just, hey, this is how it is. And then we get a little bit of volume just because it's a little bit of a rising wedge here. The good news about a rising wedge is you're only this far away, and I'll show you. You're very close when you have something like this set up here. Let me go back to XLM. From having a beautiful consolidation that just tricks everybody. But you only get one chance at it. And right now we're getting within that margin of error. So I thought it was a great time to come on because then I can talk devil's advocate, especially right now. So you see how it does this? Almost looks like a head and shoulders. You got one chance to do something like this before it comes too far. And then you start dragging out. You got one chance to do that. But if it comes too far and breaks this area, it's probably, like if it does this, it might be too far because then you might just do that to come back. See, you don't want to start looking like that. You want to look more like that V shape here. See the two differences? Oh, I didn't turn the comments on. Sorry, 10 minutes. Forgot to turn the comments on. But does that make sense? Well, initially I didn't forget, but I was about to ask a question and I forgot I didn't move on. With that being said, good evening. 4:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Sunday, April 13th, 2025. I'm XRP Future Millionaire, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. Yes, that's an excellent question about the 2-hour golden cross. And if that holds, we'll be okay on XRP. Not all of them are in that same spot. XRP, if it holds, it's good, but I'm going to play a little devil advocate with you right now and tell you why we need the drop. So I know it sounds stupid, but we filled out the technical move, right? That's the technical move we set up. We filled it out. Now, we also were talking about how we were trying to set up an inverse head and shoulders. Well, coming up here right now, that's not going to get the job done. Now you're going to have to do something like this and create that right shoulder. And oftentimes we'll mimic the left shoulder. So if you start mimicking it, you're going to have to come down probably and build something like that. And then you would have the wider pattern. So sometimes, you just have to have foresight. And my foresight's telling me if we are creating that inversion, we're going to have a little bit of a shit show here initially. And it's not going to be awful. But it's going to go back to something like, remember how we had it set up right here? And then it has to do the double take, like, whoop. Remember how we drew it out a long time ago? The double take. Wow. Look at, if that does rotate down, remember I drew out 2 different scenarios, well, 3 scenarios, I believe. But this is absolutely taking scenario 2 right now. Let's get rid of this. That is creepy. Look, that's taking scenario 2 right now. Remember we had scenario 1 to the downside, scenario 2, and we had a flip point right there. That's either taking scenario 2 or 3, which could be bullish or bearish. We won't know. But at least in the short term, right here, $2 would be the safe bet, right? If you're looking to get into this, $2 would be the drop. It's not so bad. That's what I'm saying. Like, even if they drop, it's not so bad. Because this would be here, and then it would also fill this out, right? Fill this out, right? And that would be fine. I think that's okay. I think we're okay. I appreciate you, brother. You are so funny, though. Enjoy it. Hey, I know. I can't help it. Oh, shit. As I just spilled a little bit of my water. Hold on. Man down, Julie. Most of it fell on my tablet. Let me just say I was so funny. I'm cute. Tommy's laughing. Right on cue, I would spill this. But does that make sense to everybody? Like, we could set up a very nice, unique pattern here. I have something to KG. Have a blessed day, my friend. No problem. You go take care of business. It's Sunday, Not everybody's going to want to be here. Not everybody's going to want to hear this. But, how about this? While I'm cleaning this up, take advantage of this. I have it in the video description below and or pinned comments of this very video on the live. You can see BITUNIX. You can go to the home page even, but it's on the video description. Make sure you sign up to BITUNIX. I use it, and I made this leverage trade on IOTA on BITUNIX, and it was a nice one. I talk about it every step of the way. It's the only one I've done in a long time. I'm not a leverage trader by design, but sometimes I like to take a shot when I see something. But they have the lowest spot and leverage trading fees, so I can buy and sell the swing trade, even if it's in spot. So take advantage of it. Don't be a slave to the exchanges that take away. That's why I can't use crypto.com for every purchase. If it wasn't for DGB, I wouldn't be on there. I'm just being honest, because their fees are too high. But I think this is probably what's happening. In the best case scenario, we should be able to hold that $2.02 Oh, let me take that off. That's becoming way too many variables. But I think everybody understands what I'm saying. But it's definitely taking that second line we took. One of those two. It's just it's amazing because we talked about it coming up to the 200 day, and that's what it did, and that's how we projected it up. But I still see it forming like this inverted right arm it's gonna have to form. You wish your average was 218. I don't. Oh no. God no. No offense to anybody at that range or higher. I have no way wish I'm very happy with my average being at 35 cents. Like, I don't want it at $2. I never have, I never did, I never will. I like to own it, but I don't like to own it at that price. Like, I just know the history of XRP. You know, in it under $1, you're sitting pretty. In it under 50 cents, feeling real good. Under 40 cents, you might as well just be smoking a stogie. But I really see this kind of a setup for XRP, and it's nothing we haven't missed. Isn't it interesting we rejected to all time at the previous? It is interesting. It is interesting. You were in it for 400,000. I don't know what XEPA is, but that's nice. But Zappa I sold. Now I'm FOMOing back in. By the way, I really like this background, must I say. I figured you were saying XRP, so I didn't want to say anything until you corrected it. 55 XRP I sold, now I'm FOMOing back. What'd you sell at, if you don't mind, if I ask? Because 400,000 XRP is a substantial amount of XRP. Yeah, we definitely got to fill them gaps. That's for sure. But that's why I wanted to come on right now. I came on, and now, like, you don't have to guess. You can look at it in real time what we're talking about the potential of a drop, probably to that $1.98 to $2 range. Ooh, bravo. Go to the gym, bro. Bravo. You did what I did. You did exactly what I did. I had bought twice as, well, I don't know if you know my story, but I like to do it based on the 10,000 tokens with the audience. So I bought twice as much so that I could sell 10,000 when it got to an appropriate range that I thought. So I did it plus $3 on some, or most of that 10,000. But now the buyback is the tricky part on those. Because I'm not opposed to buying it back, but it's gonna have to have some kind of correlation or revelation within itself and come down here and start testing some lower areas. Otherwise, I turned that, I used that money to get into some other things that did rather well. And, man, you did a great job. Go to the gym, though. That's a great job. But yeah, like some are saying, join Tom's Army. Not to you in particular, but if you want to support my channel, everybody, $9.99 a month. I just do my content. I've been doing this since March of 2021, March 24th of 2021. I've never missed a day. And like, I don't hide behind paywalls. I don't charge for any content. It's just a pay it forward mentality in this community. And it helps me do what I do. That's not required. I think I'd rather people sign up to BITUNIX than join Tom's Army. Especially if you're not a trader yet. So then you can see, or if you're a new trader and you're encompassed by fees. It's really something different. Like the first time I got on an exchange that didn't have all the fees, I'm like, what the hell? I don't need to have a 4 to 8% gain just to buy and sell to get even. I could actually have a 5% move and actually make money. And it's like, no, man. My company fired me in September 8, 2023. I grabbed 120,000 401k and bought. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it. You made your own retirement. The best thing that ever happened to you was for them to do it. God, I love when people talk about how they're They were saved money by being able to sell at the peak of this bull. Again, that was the peak of this bull market again when I put those out for everybody. The peak. Oh man, those were the worst couple of days that I had this whole entire year and the end last year. Everybody got so mad. It reminded me, it was reminiscent of 2021. But anyhow, let's get back to this. Let's get back to this. Oh, Josh. Okay, well, that makes more sense. I hustle harder than you. I should have guessed that that was the name. That it was you, Josh. Welcome. But anyhow, let's get back to these looking rising wedges. Because I understand this isn't the sexiest topic on a Sunday. Nor does everybody want to hear this for a 17th week in a row. But it's not over yet. Like this, sometimes they do put these out there so that when you look from a technical sense, you know, then it breaks down. So, but it does seem to make sense that we would create, and I don't even know if this is far enough. That's the thing. Like, well, maybe it is. Yeah, it is. This would be lined up good because we'd want to be somewhere within this range. Maybe coming down farther isn't exactly what it needs to do. But somewhere around that, yeah, see, that lines up absolutely perfect, actually. Let me go back to that other chart real quick. Yeah, see, that's perfect, actually. That would play out, actually, this would play out perfect. Because then you'd have almost like a descending channel that would form here. Hold on. Let's just say it goes to dink, the dink, the dink, the, you know. So then you would have some kind of channel forming, but it's almost, you want to be more reminiscent of what we've seen over there. So maybe it would go a little overextended. Because this was more like a sideways chop than down. Now up, you could go back to the down and then back test almost like that neck. Oh shit, that looks like ass. That neckline, you know what I'm talking about. You could almost back test the neckline on a support structure. Honestly, I kind of think this is the way it goes. Corey says Detroit hustles harder, no doubt. No doubt. We do it different around these parts. But honestly, I can also see what's that lower structure. We put it there. So, I mean, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Louis, as long as it doesn't break this formation, absolutely. Absolutely, it's following the Elliott wave. Because if this could still be part of that corrective wave, and then it goes into a boom, ba-bam, ba-boom, ba-bam from impulse to corrective. And it kind of does that for a while. But we can absolutely bounce out of this into wave 5 still. Like, if it bounces out to wave 5, it's going to come up quite a bit, quite a ways. But it seems to have created its own little fundamental setup here on the consolidation. Wow. Go to the gym, bro. Join Tom's Army. Julie, somebody join Tom's Army. Thank you so much. You just made me the happiest person in the world today. Happy enough to where I had to tell Julie. And I know it's your first month because that's the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. I'd like to think it was this fantastic technical analysis that made you join, but I have to say it's probably the background. That's a beautiful sun-looking sunset. I think that's what it was. But I mean, honestly, I'm going to delete these projections from here and here. Because, I mean, it's following it and here. Because I want it to be clear. Like, I think we just, as long as it follows in this projection, I would rather just break out and not have to come all the way through and already be on like a bull flag. But my heart of heart says, rejected at the 200 day, gap to be met behind, back test still needed, and inverse right shoulder loading. I'm thinking we're going to come down here, but it's not going to be for as long as people think. Ah, boy. Why does it always have to line up like that? Nick, why does it always have to line up like that? That's why it has to overextend a little bit. Because, look, if we would have played it to here, it would have been Friday or Thursday. If you play it down to here, but $1.95, it gets you to Sunday. Oh, my God. Easter Sunday. Is our Lord and Savior going to give us an Easter pump? Now that would be phenomenal. Oh, man. Look what that's setting up for. Now this would be epic. Oh, I'm all for this. I am all for this. Big inverse head and shoulders sets up with the apex on Easter Sunday. I'd be all for that. Although I'd be all for that. Catch everybody by surprise on Monday after Easter. Look at that. Look how that could set up. I almost think that's what's going to happen. That's what I want. By the way, don't forget to give thanks to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ on this beautiful Sunday. You know, stay humble. Show humility. That's why I come on here every day. Especially if I don't usually feel too big-headed. I almost feel too small-headed most of the time. But look, this would be the perfect inverse head and I mean, that would be... Oh, my goodness. I think this is it. If it's going to play bullish for us, I think that's what it's got to look like. It makes sense. It makes sense. The only thing that I would say is that bottom of this, I didn't make wide enough. Right here. Let me redo this part. I don't think I made that wide enough. Because if I was going to say, oh, this is what I would be expecting, just based on everything I see. Because I like when it mimics the prior part of the pattern. Could be something like this. Oh, that might be too big too, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying. Something like that. Hey, TT. Yeah, Daddy's just finishing. Yeah, we're almost done, TT. It's already been 26 minutes. Do you need something here? What do you need? Daddy, I'll help you. What do you need, bud? Are you looking for snacky? You want a snacky? Which one you want? What must cooking? What must cooking? It's hot. Tommy, you can stay out here, Daddy's just gonna be talking. Okay. You just gotta listen to Daddy. So maybe it is forming these inverse head and shoulders. You know, I could definitely see this. I could definitely see this. But I just want to see if this plays out in that fashion. I'm trying to think of another way this could play out. But if we're looking at... Oh, wow, it's down to 2094. Yeah, it's definitely playing out in at least this fashion. But it makes me feel good that I came on, but, you know, so that we could talk about it in real time. It just seemed like that's what was set up. It definitely seemed like that's what was set up. But what do you guys think? Honestly, what do you think? Do you think we have no choice but to play this out like this, and maybe on Christmas or Easter we'll have a great move? Because look, you can see it with Bitcoin as well. This is going to fail probably. It's probably going to fail here. And it's probably going to, like, they look like they're probably going to drag out and do something to try to form the same exact line like this. We're going to have to emulate this. And then you would have the boom. But this is what I mean in cryptocurrency. You've got to try to be, like, forward thinking. But at the same time, it is kind of a pain in the ass how many times. And then if that breaks down, well, this is the pattern, folks. If this pattern breaks down, then you're going to $1.38 to $1.50. You wouldn't really have a choice. I could take this outside. It's fine. You're gonna what? Okay. You're sick of back testing every time we go up a bit. So I'm interested to see what the government does with the 50 million. I am too. We'll see what happens there. We'll definitely see what happens there. Let's see. The thing that tipped me off too was earlier with Ethereum. Ethereum started to reverse, and you could see that it was almost like a bear flag set up. And it just, if it was going to break up, it should have kept going. And now it's coming back below. Ethereum is being a dead giveaway this entire time. Like, even if you look at this resistance, It's like every time it just can't get over it. You could do that all the way down. That's crazy. But Ethereum, some of these are in smaller rising wedges. Ethereum broke down out of a much larger rising wedge, so, and it's still playing down, so. I mean, you guys can see my night's chaotic right now, so I'm gonna have to go here in a minute. I do appreciate everybody tuning in to this part of the live. Sometimes it's just hard. My son's special needs and got a couple, 3 kids in the house, and but right now we'll see how much longer he lets me until he needs me. But he's doing his thing right now, but he's definitely trying to get my attention. But I think that's what we're looking at across the board. I do. I think that's what we're looking at. And you'll have to use your best judgment to, if it's going to actually fall down here, if it's going to keep going. But, yeah, we'll call that. We'll call it a day here with that. And then maybe I'll try to do an update later. But at least we got to do 30, 35 minutes together. I got my point across. I think I got my point across. That was the point here. Got my point across. Don't let this slip away. Don't ignore what it's showing us right now. But don't be so, emotionally distraught that you think it's over. So we'll look at maybe an Easter pump here. We'll talk about this more the next time I come on. Have a blessed day, everybody.